Okay, so today is all about square root functions. Okay, and a square root function contains the square root of a variable, and the square root function is a type of radical function. And here's what the parent graph looks like, so the original without any transformations. And this would be the example of the parent function. It'd be square root of x. This is the graph of it. The domain would be x is greater than 0. The range would be y is greater than 0, because you can see there's no values less than 0 for x. There's no values less than 0 for y. Your intercepts would be x equals 0, y equals 0 right here. That's your only x-intercept. And we know what end behavior is. So that's the parent graph. Okay. Let's see. We already know how to do this, the transformations. We know if it's on the inside with the function, it moves on which axis? The x, right? And if it's negative, that means it's moving to the what? Right. And if it's positive,
Left.
to the left. And this moves on the what axis?
Y.
The y. If it's plus, moves
Down. Up.
good. And if it's down, negative, it moves down. We already know that, so we don't have to go over it. This out front affects the what?
The reflection.
If it's negative. But what if it's just a number there? It just affects the what? Slope. Good. Alright, so we didn't have to go over that. Go ahead and flip it. So we're going to get straight into graphing these. And you can graph it with your graphing calculator, but I'm going to show you how to do it without it. It's really easy. Before we graph it, we have to find the domain and range, which is also very easy. For the domain, all you have to do is set what's underneath the radical and make it an inequality. And always put greater than or equal to 0. So what's underneath the radical? X minus 5. Go ahead and create an inequality. It'll always be greater than or equal to 0. And then we just solve for x. So how do we do that? What now? Add 5. So it'll be x is greater than or equal to what? 5. That's the domain. So that's how you find the domain on every single problem. Notice how on number 2, how it has something outside of the radical. When we're finding the domain, we're only concerned with what's inside the radical. So we would just set x plus 3 greater than or equal to 0. Alright, for the range, all you're going to do is plug in this value you got for the domain back into the original to find the range. So if we plug 5 back in for x right here, we'll have what? 5 minus 5, so we'll have square root of, which is? Good. So your range will be f of x. It'll always be greater than or equal to 0.
Go over range.
Yes, I can. Hey, Jared. You can grab your notes out of there. That's what we're going over right now.
Is the range always?
You can just throw that away. What now?
The range is always supposed to be 0?
No, not always, because if you look at this one, Jackson, if we were to plug like negative 3 back into here,
Yeah.
we get square root of 0 plus 2, so the range would be 2. Alright, Zach, once you find the domain, so 5, you plug it back into the original. So 5 minus 5 would give us 0, and the square root of 0 is 0. Any other questions about domain and range so far? Alright, now we're going to make a table, and the table is going to be values of x and y. And we're going to make up our x values. But we know now, because of the domain and range, what kind of values we're going to have to pick. Can we pick 0 for one of our x values? No, why?
We don't have to.
It has to be greater than or equal to what? 5. Good. So why don't we start with that? We'll start with 5. What would the next number have to be? 7, 8. We'll go 5 numbers. And how would we find the y? Good. Plug it in for x into what? The original equation. Good. So if we plug in 5 right here, we'll get 5 minus 5, which is square root of 0 is? Good.
So you just plug it in for x?
Yes, into the original. So if we plug in 6, we'll get square root of 6 minus 5. That's going to be square root of what? Which is? Good. How come I didn't put plus or minus 1 right there?
Because it was 6 minus 5.
Yeah, which is 1, but in the square root of 1, couldn't it be negative or positive 1? So why didn't I put a negative 1 up there, plus or minus 1? Because every y value has to be what? Greater than 0. So we don't have to put the plus or minus 1, because negative 1 is less than 0, right?
Wait, so are you just plugging in the x values into x minus 5?
Yep.
So when you get 5 minus 5, okay.
So now we have 7 minus 5, which is what?
Negative 2.
2. And what's the square root of 2?
It's 1.
Mm-mm. Plug it in your calculator.
1.41.
Alright, we'll just round to 1.41. Good. And now if we plug in 8 into here, we'll have 8 minus 5, which gives a square root of what? 3. Let's go ahead and round it to the nearest hundredth. Tell me what you get. 1.7 what? 3. And now if we plug in 9, we'll have 9 minus 5, which is 4. And square root of 4 is? Good. Now all we have to do is graph these coordinate points. And this graph actually, we're not going to be able to graph all the points because all our x values are way over here, but we'll go ahead and estimate it. So at 5, you'll have a point at 0, correct? At 6, it'll be at 1. 7, it'll be 1.41, so that's almost 1.5, right? So a little bit below the half mark. And then we can just estimate 8 will be right here. So almost a 2, and then 9 will be at 2. And we can go ahead and draw our graph. We know that 5, 0 is going to be where it starts from, right? Because can any of the values be less than 5? Can any of them be less than 0 for y? No. So it's going to start here, and it'll go on forever. And all square root functions will look like this. Yes?
So the domain, you just set it less than or equal to 0?
Greater than or equal to 0. And yes, and it's going to be everything underneath the radical for the domain. And an easy way to remember that, Jackson, remember anything inside here is going to change on the x-axis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the domain, that's dealing with x values. So you're only setting this part underneath the radical greater than or equal to 0. Any other questions about that one? Okie dokie. Then for this one, for the domain, tell me how to set up the equation. Perfect. Again, we're not concerned with the 2 on the outside because that's moving on the y-axis. We're just worried about the domain, which is your x value. So what would my domain be? X is greater than or equal to negative 3. Good.
So the 2 isn't under the radical?
No, it's not underneath. It's on the outside. All right, for my range, I'm just going to take what value and plug it in for x? Negative 3. Good. So we'll have square root of negative 3 plus 3 plus 2, right? And what happens underneath the radical? Good. Square root of 0 is? So 0 plus 2. So we'd have f of x is greater than or equal to 2. Good. That's my range. Any questions about that part? Alright, then for my table, what's going to have to be my first x value? Negative 3, good. And everything else has to be less than or greater than that value. So the next one will be negative 1, 0, 1. Alright. What am I going to get if I plug in negative 3? 0 plus 2, which is good.
So it's always going to come back to be like the y.
Yeah, for the first one, it'll always be that because it's the center of the. It's where the square root function starts. All right, now if I plug in negative 2 for x up here, I'll have negative 2 plus 3, which is what? Which is 1, right? What's the square root of 1? plus 2?
3.
Good.
Are you doing it wrong if like your numbers, like if it was like 2, 3, and then like a number less than 3?
Say that
Is
again?
it supposed to be like consecutive, like 2,
Yes,
3,
it should be consecutive. Alright, if y'all plug in -1, I'll have -1 plus 3, which is what? 2. We know the square root of 2 from this problem was 1.41, right? So what's 1.41 plus 2?
3.4.
Good, 3.41. Alright, if I plug in 0 for the original problem, I'll have 0 plus 3. We know that the square root of 3 from last problem is what? And what's 1.73 plus 2?
3.7.
Good. And last one, I have a 1 right here. So what's 1 plus 3? Square root of 4 plus 2? Good. Questions about that one? Let's scrap it. So right here, -3, 2, -2, 3, -1, 3.41, that's going to be almost to halfway, 0, 3.73, and then 1, 4. And you can do more numbers than this if you'd like. I just wanted to do 5 of them so we can get a good idea of what the graph looks like. Are these pretty easy? Yes? Okay. Then try 2 on your own. I'll call on some people to help me when we go over it. If you need help, you can ask people at your table, or you can ask me. Let me know if you have questions.
I got greatest. Was that 5 minus 5 and 0 and 6? You get 11.
Because at the main, you're only worried about what's under wraps.
Oh. Hey, wait. You use your range or did make first?
Your range. The slope's just going to affect what these numbers are. Don't worry about it.
Oh, you have to be minus 6. So the second number is minus 6. No, like in the y. Which is 1 actually square root of 1. Would you have the square root or is it that?
You plug in 5, you get 5 minus 5.
I got -5 last time. I did 5 minus 5 is 1 square root of that 1.
Yeah, the 2 only comes in when you're.
Wait, you got -6? What is happening? You didn't send me a text message on the wait, that? Dude, wait, what? Because you played. You would play 5 and
Let me get what.
so your X and I'm confused. Because like when you drew up his like X and Y, when you I didn't even
I got
hear
a
it.
2.45.
The main range.
So the
It's like
square
oh,
root is the I at the
you
end.
write out. So like the first number is -6.
Yeah, it should be right here, -6.
Oh.
Because when you plug in 5 right here, you'll get 5 minus 5, which is what?
zero.
Square root of
Mine
zero.
should, my
Times two.
y, not if you really like.
Times
to
two.
all the numbers.
Still zero.
Like negative
Yeah,
one,
minus six.
and negative one.
So we square root of
Times two, oh, yeah.
I put in, I put in 7,
Which is 1 times 2 times 2.
Yeah, times two.
I don't know. I think you square root first, but they would still need this times.
it would still be
Oh, she said you could grab it.
right.
Oh, yeah. I'm just used to these second traits and they're showing the thing, yeah, like you. Why did it whistle like that? Did you hear that? Y'all was like,
Negative 5 minus 5. Oh,
Are your Y's right? Positive?
it's gonna go up.
This function is it makes you feel okay. And now the second table
Wouldn't hurt if you
is all
Oh, but there's a fraction.
should be.
Oh, I forgot we have cheat codes. What'd you do, white or black?
So you can Alright, can we go over this one? We ready to go over it? Alright, Resida, if you'll help me with the domain. So tell me how to set it up. Good, so what's my domain? Perfect. Raise your hand if you got that. Okay. Seth, if you'll tell me how to find the range.
You should FX.
Okay, go ahead.
And you do greater than or equal to pop.
For the range, we got to take this and do what with it?
Again.
Rondell, help him out. What do we do with the 5?
you go plug it in.
To, good. So we get 2 square root of 5 minus what now?
5.
Good. So we'd have 2 square root of
0.
minus 6, so
Negative 6.
good. Any questions about that part? So that's our domain and range. Alright, for my table, Jada, what are going to be my x values?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay. CJ, what'd you get when you plugged 5 in?
Negative 6.
Okay. Kaylee, what'd you get when you plugged 6 in? Negative 4? Okay. CJ, I already called on you, I'm sorry. John, what'd you get when you plugged 7 in?
Negative 3.7.
7, 2. Zach, what'd you get when you plugged 8 in?
Negative 2.54.
Chloe, what'd you get when you plugged 9 in?
Negative 2.
Did everybody get these values?
On number 7, I got negative 3.8. Yeah.
On number 7?
Yeah.
Did everybody get that? Okay. They might have just made a calculator error. That's fine. Alright, now to graph them. So 5, negative 6 is going to be down here. 6, negative 4. 7, negative 3.18, so right about here. And you can see our other dots are going to be like so. Any questions about that one? Alright, we'll do this last one together since we're kind of running out of time. Any questions about that one? Okie dokie. Alright, Dylan, tell me how to set up this domain.
You do what's under the radical instead of equal to 0.
Okay, so tell me what's right.
X minus 1 equals 0. Or, wait, what?
Not equal to 0.
Greater than or equal to 0.
Good. So our domain is what?
1.
X is greater than or equal to 1. Any questions about that part? Alright, so Perry, what would I do to find my range?
You would plug in 1 for x,
Okay, that would give me what underneath the radical?
0,
Okay, so what would my range be?
-0.
Good. Any questions about that part?
Negative 1/2
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with range, does it?
It does. But every time we take the domain and plug it back in, we're going to get what underneath the radical? 0, right? So anything multiplied by this radical will cancel out with it. Alright, so Amy, what's going to be my x values for my table?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good. Alright. Jared, what will I get if I plug in 1 for x in this function? Good. Emma, what will I get if I plug in 2? That's what you get right here. Then you have to subtract 2, and you'll get what? Negative 2.5. Good. Alright, Stacy, what do you get if you plug 3 in? Did everybody get that? Okay, let's go back and look at that one. If we plug 3 in right here, 3 minus 1 is what? What's the square root of 2? Alright, so 1.41 times negative 1/2, right? Minus 2, that should give us negative what? 2.7. Any questions about that one? Alright. CJ, what'd you get when you plugged in 4? Anybody want to help him out?
Negative 2.88.
That's what I got, negative 2.9. I rounded it up. Did everybody get that? Alright, and Jack, what are we going to get if we plug in 5?
-3.
Good job, Jed.
I'll take that because I cheated in my calculation.
Okay, you can cheat on your calculator, that's fine. He says he's cheating on his calculator, and if you have a TI 83 or 84, you can plug this in for y equals. Evelyn, you already done this one? Okay, can I see it? Oh, no, just your calculator. Okay, so if you plug this one in on your calculator, you can do negative 0.5, because that's the same thing as 1/2. Square root of x minus 1. Make sure you close out your parentheses right here, minus 2. And then if you hit second table and go to your table, it'll tell you all the values for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Everybody see that? So you don't have to calculate it if your calculator does it for you. And just make your table off of here. Does anybody else need me to go over that one more time, how you do that? Okay. There you go. Alright, so let's go ahead and graph it. So this is what the graph should look like. 1, negative 2, 2, negative 2.5, so in the middle. 3, negative 2.7. 4, negative 2.9. Getting really close. There we go. Why do you think this one's kind of backwards than the other ones?
Because it has a negative.
Good, because of the negative out front. It's going to flip it. Alright, so we feel good about graphing square root functions? Pretty good? Awesome. Alright, flip it. This is your homework, except I need you to cross out numbers 8 and number 10. And that's all. So 8 and 10. And the reason I'm giving you problems like this on there that we have not learned, like obviously in 6.3, is because this stuff's going to be on your test on Friday, and I don't want you to forget it. Okay? So you can go ahead and start working on this. The graphs for 4, 5, 6, and 7 are right here. That's where you'll graph them. And let me know if you need any help.